we'll wait a couple, like 30 seconds or so and kick off.
Okay, I'll admit them now. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So for those of you joining us, please make sure you turn off your audio. Audio is just for our participants, our panelists, our speakers. Feel free to turn on your camera. It's always nice to see faces all around the world whilst we can't travel. But yeah, we'll just give it a few seconds, just let everyone tune in, and then we'll start with the intros. Lots of familiar faces.
Good morning, everybody.
Cool. I think we're ready to kick off. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thanks for joining this session with Drink Magazine and Lyres, where we will be discussing the low-no movement. Of course, it's January, so it's like a very fun time to have this discussion. As much as you love or hate dry January, it's always a hot topic. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Holly Graham. I'm the managing editor of Drink Magazine, and I'm based in Hong Kong. And I'm going to hand over to our panelists to introduce themselves and kick off with Lyre's founder, Mark Livings. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our roundtable. It's really awesome to see your faces, some familiar ones, and of course, a lot of people that I'm yet to meet. As Holly mentioned, I'm one of the creators and one of the founders of Lyre's Non-Alcoholic Spirits Co. We are the world's most awarded range of non-alcoholic spirits, a full range of 13, available in 35 countries. I personally lead a team of close to 50 people now, taking our brand to the world. And we are delighted to be poured in some of the amazing venues that some of my co-panelists are at the helm of today. I've also got my colleague on this call, Rachel, and there's a few members of the Lyres team that have tuned in. Okay. So big shout out to Paul Foster. Can see your handsome face, and Oh Young, good morning, tuning in from China and Australia. I'm coming to you guys from Amsterdam. Oh, Max from Berlin. Hey, Max. And I've got a little United Nations going on. So yes, whilst we can't travel, this is definitely the next best thing. So really looking forward to getting our teeth into the topic of no and low. It's arguably the fastest growth category in the entire consumer products industry. And what's really interesting is some of the guys from the on-trade here, some of the world's best bars indeed, are right in the vanguard of this change. And it's going to be interesting to hear from them. Have they been the ones to carry the torch forward, or have they been the ones to respond to changing consumer requests across the bar? So it's going to be really fun to dig into this, and really looking forward to the session. So thank you guys for pulling this together. Back to you, Holly.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. I'm going to hand over to Rachel to introduce yourself.
Hey guys, I'm Rachel Ling, and I'm based in Singapore, work with Lyre now.
Sorry, Rach, to interrupt you guys. Participants, we're getting some feedback, so can everyone make sure you turn off your audio? Sorry, audience, turn off your audio. Audio is just for participants. Sorry, Rach, back to you.
No worries. Back to me. So I'm the Regional Asia Manager for Lyre, as a couple of you know. So great to have so many people on the call. Just want to say shout out to Viv. Hey Viv, Gabriel. I can see Terry from Korea online. So awesome to see everyone from all around the world here. Thanks for joining us, and very much looking forward to getting in a topic of no and low alcoholic drinks for the industry. Yeah, I'm gonna hand this over to Beckaly now.
Hi guys, this is Beckaly Franks, co-owner of the Pontiac in Hong Kong, coming to you live from my living room. I'm very excited to go through this tasting with you. It's going to be interesting because when it comes to NA spirits, I'm usually the sort of the anti for it. So I look forward to playing devil's advocate a lot in this conversation, but going through and tasting it. And thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Let's go we've had the mother of mixology in Hong Kong. Let's hand over to the father of mixology in Hong Kong, Mr. Antonio Lyre.
Hi, everyone. I'm Antonio Lyre, the guy who made the drinks. If you don't know me, I do cocktail bar, start with Quinary, then Origin Envoy Von Physio and I Droplet, last but not least, Michelin one-star restaurant Vida. Also, we do cocktail pairing for that. And non-alcohol, spirit-free mocktail pairing. As you know, I'm a big fan of non-alcoholic drinker because I couldn't drink too much. That's pretty much me.
Thank you, Antonio. And let's hand over to the ever dapper Jessie Vida in Singapore.
Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everybody. I'm Jessie Vida, head bartender here at Atlas Bar in Singapore. I'm not a teetotaler, but I do like to take breaks and focus on my physical and mental health at times. But I drink alcoholic, non-alcoholic, low alcohol when the time's right. But yeah, I guess I'll pass it off to the next. Thank you, Holly.
And last but by no means least, the one who's probably gotten up the earliest on our panel today, Mr. Tim Ethrington-Judge.
Good morning, everyone. Hello from a very still dark UK. So a founder of Healthy Hospo and Avalanche Spirits. Really excited to talk to you all today, even though I've only just got up.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. It looks like Tim is in a bunker, which is surprising given how the UK is at the moment. Let's not go down that rabbit hole. So that's our panel today. And to everyone who's tuned in to listen, thank you for your time. Of course, for those of you who are familiar with Zoom or not, we've got the chat box. Feel free to answer questions. Myself and Grace from Lyre will be keeping an eye on that. I can't promise we'll be able to get around to all of them, but we'll be keeping our eye on that. Another kind reminder to turn off your audio, please. Don't want any feedback because that just makes my ears bleed. But we're going to kick off with the question of who is doing Dry January. So if you're on camera, raise your hand or let us know in the group chat. Awesome. So for myself, I think this is the first time I've ever done Dry January. I will be completely honest in that it's not been perfect, but I think that any change is good. So I've done pretty well so far, and we all know in our industry it's no mean feat. But I'd be interested to hear from some of our panelists. I think I'll go to Jessie first because I think you have a similar approach to me. So what's made you choose to go Dry January this year?
So slight curveball, Holly. I'm not doing a full Dry January, but I'm keeping it very moderate. I have taken months off, weeks off. I've done Dry January before in the past. I used to do a hard rule of basically always taking one full month off every year. But, you know, I like to take different approaches. And, you know, this year it's, I guess, call it a moderate January, but I'm more just trying to shape the way that I will drink through the rest of the year, which is, you know, I basically try to only consume, you know, 1 or 2 days a week, and all the rest, I just don't really drink at all.
Yeah, cool. I think that's what I meant. Like, you have a similar approach to me. It's a moist January.
Exactly.
Okay, I think it'll be interesting to hear from Beckaly, who is not participating. I'd love to hear the reasons why or why not, and, you know, your thoughts behind that.
First of all, you know, I commend everybody for taking, if you need to take a chunk of time off from drinking, I think it's important for the body to, you know, recalibrate and things like that. So I want to put forth that I think it's a great thing and that we should all do it from time to time. My birthday is in the middle of January, so that's basically impossible for me. Yeah, it's really, really hard. And it doesn't bother me all too much. For myself, you know, I'm in operations and stuff like that. So also when we just did a 2-day pop-up, and I have a pop-up coming up every single weekend for a month. And, you know, it's in Asia specifically, I will say it's such a collaborative drinking culture. So it's really difficult to do that. So when I'm not working, typically like when I'm at home or doing my other things, not work related, that's usually like my days off per se. So usually ends up being like 50-50. But Dry January is not necessarily an option for me. And it's also very hard right now, like I said, because I'm constantly doing pop-ups and things like that. And it's just like, it's it's just wild here. And I'm coming from a person, so like in the States, you're not allowed to drink on the job at all. So moving to Asia and having it be such like a shot culture, but also like just collaborative drinking culture at work. So that's taken a lot. It's actually personally the last 5 years has been interesting. I've noticed that I drink a lot more at work, whereas before it wasn't even legal to drink at work at all.
Tim, I'd be curious to hear from you as well, because you're in a full lockdown at the moment. So obviously we all know COVID has impacted drinking. So what have you got for us?
I think so. I'm a huge fan of dry January, very much for health reasons. So if we look at some of the stats around drinking within our industry, hospitality has the third highest rates of alcohol abuse of any industry in the world. Before anyone asks, we're only topped by heavy mining and construction. So you've got this huge amount of drinking. And as Dusha and Zarek from Employees Only always used to say, it's in the industry we have learned to normalize the extreme. If any of us, except maybe Antonio, went to the doctors and were honest about our alcohol consumption, we are at the very extreme end. So even when we think we're being normal or normalizing, we're still drinking an extreme amount of alcohol. And that shows up in the fact that bartenders are more likely to die from alcohol-related disease than any other type of worker. And it's because of this consistency of drinking. Like if you work in construction or mining, you don't drink at work. If you work in a mine, you'll get breathalyzed on your way to work. And if you fail the breathalyzer, you get sent home. We all know what happens if you give a bartender a breathalyzer. They instantly reach for a bottle of absinthe or something strong on the back bar. So things like dry January give your body a break. Like the body is an amazing thing, and it will heal itself extremely quickly if we give it the opportunity and the right food. So having an extended break of 2 weeks or more from alcohol really does give your liver this opportunity to kind of flush out all the toxins, to repair some of the damage that's done. So it's actually a really good thing, particularly for all of us who do work in drink, to have that break from alcohol from time to time. You should kind of try and get 2 weeks, at least every 6 months, where you have nothing at all, just to let the liver kind of work its magic and heal itself.
Awesome.
That's all I have to say about that.
Thanks, Tim. No, I think it's always really good to hear the statistics, as dark as they are. I think, it's all fun and games, but we do need to remember like the seriousness behind it. And I've just written down 2 weeks every 6 months, and I'm going to strive for that myself. Because it doesn't always need to be January. I think we just in the chat box there that a lot of people do it in January because, the excess of Christmas and Thanksgiving if you're in America and things like that. But there's no reason to just, there's no reason to not go dry any other time. You don't necessarily have to do a month, like Tim said, you can just have a small break and things like that.
Yeah, and it's if you just look at it as investing in your own health, we do work in an industry where we have excessive consumption. So taking some time every year just to kind of make sure that you're investing in your health and you're staying on top of your game and you're being the best bartender that you can.
Yeah. So I think let's move on to talk about, the phrase like, the low-no movement, the sober curious movement. It's definitely gained traction. Many of you listening or on our panel have been in hospitality for years. So I think I'd like to ask you, Antonio, as someone who's been at the forefront of mixology in Hong Kong, and as someone who doesn't really drink yourself, like how have you seen the low-no cocktails change over the years in Hong Kong and in Asia?
I strongly believe that have been changing slowly. We get a good amount of requests of non-alcoholic or spirit-free drinking. We even start having in the menu like back to 4 years ago. We start having a like spirit-free, we call, 8 different drinks that put on the menu. The guests are able to do it. Sometimes few of our best-selling drinks, the guests is actually asked, do you have a mocktail version or non-alcoholic version that to do with? And as it's nowadays, seeing the operation hour in Hong Kong during with the restaurant is we have to close before 6. So it's the the new dinner is the old lunch, or the old lunch is the new dinner thing. So we start promoting spirit-free pairing on the menu, which we don't usually do it before, back to the old day. So by changing this, that's actually have a little bit more guests that happy or enjoyed it to order having a spirit-free drinks during their lunch pairing altogether. So by all means, it's actually people see this as a little bit more important, especially, I mean, you can drink in the lunch, yes, of course, but you can also have a mocktail or spirit-free drinks pairing together during your lunch together. So I see that it's getting a little bit more attention from the people around. I mean, even myself, I enjoy making spirit-free drinks. For me, making a really tasty cocktail is not crazy difficult, but making a spirit-free taste good drinks instead of just putting sugar in to make everything taste good, because this is the normal guess, like, oh, every time I order non-alcoholic drinks, it tastes way too sweet. Like, having said that, I like this. I can't stop drinking it since I open. It's so easy to drink with tonic, something very easy. It does taste good. It's kind of giving me a post-spit feeling. I mean, lunch, I can drink this all day long, sitting outside playing my iPad with the sunshine going down. Easy.
Thanks, Antonio. How about you, Jesse? Because you obviously work in a bar that is dedicated pretty much to gin and champagne, with it all on obvious display. So what do you guys offer, and how have you seen things change? And obviously you've not been at Atlas a really long time, but have you seen in your time there, have you seen any changes, and have you adapted your offerings?
When I first got to Singapore, Asia, moving from New York, I did notice that here there were people did drink more non-alcoholic drinks than was more common where I came from. That said, I would say, even I was looking at the numbers, and we do sell more non-alcoholic, even with everything that's happened during the times that we've been open. Even one year difference. I've been at Atlas now for about almost a little under 2.5 years, and the orders for non-alcoholic have gone up a little bit incrementally, and by volume. I actually literally just stepped off the bar. I was bartending lunch shift today, and I made a bunch of non-alcoholic drinks. So that's still going on. But I think, obviously the day and age we live in is people are more health conscious. Our generation, and certainly the younger generations even more so. And I've noticed that, I think there had been a stigma in the past that if you were to go out and order a non-alcoholic drink, it was kind of frowned upon, or it wasn't cool, or people are going to make fun of you or give you a hard time. But I do think that mentality is shifting a bit, which is a great thing. And of course, I hope that more bars and bartenders, embrace being very thoughtful about their non-alcoholic offerings, because we really try to make good non-alcoholic drinks here at Atlas.
Well, I think that one of the things, in complement to what you were saying, Jesse, is it's the sort of the greater consciousness is basically this a completely new thing. People in the 50s through the 70s, just wellness as something that we do, and we try to take care of our bodies. Wellness is a whole new activation. It's a whole new lifestyle. It's a whole new culture. Just wellness in general wasn't something that was in, anybody's daily routine. And the low ABV, the low and no movement and things like that play into that 100% as we become more conscious.
Yeah, I think there's a huge business opportunity here as well. So beyond the health benefits of no and low, there's a huge number of people around the world that don't drink for particular reasons, whether it's health or religious. And I remember, I'm old enough here to remember when cocktails weren't mainstream, and we were desperate for anyone to drink a cocktails, because there were so few people drinking, that if we saw a cocktail on TV, we'd all get excited, and if people kind of ordered stuff. And now, we have this opportunity to open up our amazing world of cocktails and crafting fine drinks to a whole new group of people that have never experienced that before. And I think that's such a wonderful and beautiful thing, to be able to extend all of the work that we do to everyone, not just those that drink alcohol.
100%. So my wife actually owns a cocktail company out of the UK called Mocktail, and I was eavesdropping. I was in the kitchen as she was on the phone with her partners the other day. And they've actually worked with Lyres before as well, I think, for a Known Low Summit in London. But, you know, it was something that her business partner said was so poignant. It was just that, you know, people that don't want to drink alcohol also want to like feel respected too. They want to feel like what they want. They want to feel like they're part of it, and they also want to be respected as well. And there's a lot of value in that. And so in that, of course, there's an extremely large business opportunity.
Yeah, and I think that inclusion element is really important, because you're not out with a group of friends having amazing drinks and you're just sitting there having a glass of water or a Coke. You can now get involved with having some beautiful cocktails, and you feel included in the moment and the situation.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and I think that was going to lead me on to something. You know, like I said, I've never really hardcore attempted dry January, and I've given it a really good college try this year. And, you know, as Beckaly said, she's had loads of guest shifts, and I just quickly looked at her menu and I said, I guess this one will work without, you know, the base spirit. And she was like, yep, done. And then, you know, went to the Diplomat, where they're famous for Irish coffees, and just said, can I get an Irish coffee without the Irish? So,
well, and Holly, that's really astute as well, because that's also part of doing any guest shift or pop-up or anything like that. And it's just par for the course. The requirement is that whatever drinks that you have, you know, at least one or two of them have to be able to be made non-alcoholic.
Yeah, and it was delicious, for the record. But I think that leads me on to a question. You know, we're talking about consumers and our offerings to consumers, which is great. But I think the one thing that I struggle with, and I probably speak for most people in the audience and on the panel here, is that there is just such pressure to drink in our industry. You know, the shot, for example, has become a symbol of camaraderie. And when you're up for it, it's great and you love it. But, you know, one thing that I really struggle with that happens quite a lot in Singapore when we come for Singapore Cocktail Week is, you know, A, there's lots of bars in Singapore I want to visit. B, there's lots of pop-ups I want to visit. C, I haven't got time to be hungover. And, you know, for every shot that I have, that's one less cocktail or drink that I can have in another venue, because I'll be wrecked by the end of it. But there's this whole thing of, you know, you must have the shot. It's a thing of respect. Oh, go on, just have a little one. Like the next bar's not going to offer you shots as well. So how do we, as an industry, I love it, don't get me wrong, I love that camaraderie, but like as an industry, how do we tackle that? It's almost got to a point where it's bullying, you know, where we bully people into drinking, and, you know, there's that pressure. Why, you know, how do we get out of that rut that we've got ourselves stuck in?
So, yeah, I mean, shots is a great one to talk about. And I think, Holly, you know, my thinking on this. So shots almost killed me as a global whiskey ambassador for a very well-known bourbon. I used to travel the world, and every bar I went into, the bartender would be, I know what you want. You want a shot of full-strength bourbon, like everywhere. And quite often it's like when I'm leaving the bar, which makes no sense at all to me. It's like, why give me a shot when I'm leaving? Because that's not hospitality. That's just trying to get me fucked for the next bar. So let's talk about the shot, because it's a really interesting one. So having a shot is a great thing. You know, it's that moment of camaraderie, of a shared moment with your team or with someone in the bar. You know, you could be in the weeds and you have a team meeting and everyone grabs at that few seconds to have a shot, or, you know, friends come in. But it's always about the moment, right? It's not about what's in the glass. It's about sharing that moment with your friends or with your colleagues or with someone. So why does that shot need to be like full strength whiskey or vodka or rum, right? Because it's not about what's in the glass. So if we're smart, we can keep the moment, keep the camaraderie, keep everything that the shot stands for and that importance of it. But if we lower the ABV, we are making a good decision for our health, but also a good decision for work, because we may not be getting so drunk at work, as Holly says, you know, that hangover the next morning. So you're kind of looking towards the next day. We even do cocktails. Like when I was growing up as a young bartender back in the 1930s, we used to do shots of cocktails, not shots of like full strength liquor. So kind of bringing that down is a really, really sensible way of doing it. And now you've got so many choices, you know, from the no and low range of spirits that are out there. You can have shots of anything. So I think it's a really good investment to keep the shot, keep the moment, keep everything that shot stands for, but just lower the ABV of it.
Yeah, like I
That's
just
what
wrote
we
in the chat box there, I'm a big fan of snackeries, because I think like mini cocktails, and you know, they tend to be more delicious as well.
That's not what a smackery is. A smackery is a full-size daiquiri that you smack back. A DTO is a daiquiri shot.
Snackery.
There you go.
That's a small one.
Either way, they're not the same thing. But I completely agree with you, man. And like, so for example, at Ponty, the girls are trained to make a myriad of different, just lower ABV shots, mixed shots, mostly using modifiers and stuff like that. And then at the same time, you can still charge the same amount. So for example, because Hong Kong is such a drinking culture, or like a like camaraderie drinking culture, the guests want to buy like 10 shots and everybody a shot for the team. So the girls are consuming less alcohol, and my cost of goods are really low as well, because you charge the same amount. Yeah, you charge the same amount, and I'm basically making one pour into 10. So it can also make you money.
Yeah, there you go. When I used to be the chartreuse ambassador, the #1 chartreuse account in the entire world was in New Zealand, in this little town called Hamilton, and it was a nightclub. And they'd gotten into the tradition of everyone that went to the club did shots of green chartreuse, including the staff.
Remind me to never go there.
Well, I mean, that's just next level brutal. And then I also completely empathize with you when you were working with the bourbon, and as you said, a high proof. There's some distillates that are easy on your body, and whiskey is not one of them. And that is a very grueling. That occupation is grueling 100% anyways. A friend of mine, or a colleague of mine, owns the best burger joint in town, and I'm going to do a little consulting with him. And he's off meat, and he's off booze, and he's off gluten and everything like that. And he was like, I feel like I'm a hypocrite. He's like, I own a burger joint and I'm not eating meat. And I was like, that's like me saying taking 2 weeks off of drinking. Like, I should feel bad for that. I'm a hypocrite for taking 2 weeks off of drinking because I'm a bartender and I own a bar. I was like, we're not defined by our occupations. And so I think that's just kind of like a mindset that we have to just tell ourselves, is like, we don't have, hospitality is very much a lifestyle occupation, but we don't have to be defined by it.
That's a really good point, Bex, because that's something that people use it against me. It's like, what's the name of the publication you work for? Drink. So what should you do? Drink. And it's like, you're really right. Like, we shouldn't be defined by what we do, and I think it's really interesting. Like you said, Tom, I've never really got that. Why would the BA of a brand want to constantly drink their shit all the time? Mix it up a bit. But I'd be interested to hear your thoughts, Antonio, because obviously, you've traveled the world, and you don't really drink. So like, how do you politely decline? And have you ever had problems with people just pushing shots on you? How do you say no?
Well, I will be really honest to them. It's like, do you want me puking in front of your bar, or you want me sleeping in front of your bar? That's the only two things will happen, even though a shot of 30 ml, whatever that alcohol is. I mean, I'm really sensitive with the alcohol, because I'm really sensitive with the alcohol. That's why I'm really sensitive with the alcohol. Even a tiny bit.
You're really sensitive, Antonio.
I know, thank you very much. Yes, I am. It's like small things. So even that a small amount, my face will go wet and fall asleep. I remember one time, back to the old day, when I was in Russia, we was partying at the city space. And I do a small layback. I thought, it's gonna be okay. Come out, I was like, doing like this in the bar. I remember Simone was coming to me, are you okay? And I was like, I'm all right, don't worry, enjoy you guys. For half an hour, then I get a little bit awake. I went down, get a taxi back to my hotel. So after that, eventually, no one asked me to do that anymore. Yeah. So
make what Antonio is telling you guys, throw up in someone's bar or fall asleep, and they'll never offer you a shot again. There you go, solution.
Yeah, this is how I do it, Yes, that's what I mean. It's the honest, like, when you really look at them, then they kind of understand and say, okay, you may give me a shot of like this, I will drink tiny a little bit as a respect, but they will also understand. You don't want someone get drunk and puking. It's like, this is not kind of fun when you are the one who actually having that feeling or issues. Like, you don't want anyone have this feeling. Like, you don't want puking itself. Like, what's the point drinking? Drinking is to be enjoyed. right? It's like once in a while I drink tiny, a little bit celebration, calm down. I have a sip of my champagne. Next minute, I feel sleepy, but I'm happy. Know your limit as is important. My limit is that much. I know my limit, so I drink not much more, too much. So this is how I do.
Awesome. Thanks, Antonio. I'm going to move on to something that like a little bit heavier, and I think anyone can jump in, but I think Tim, this would be a good one for you, because you're very open about your journey and what you've been through. And you said that you're a BA for bourbon, so it's rough. But how do you think, like us or anyone else, like we can realize we have a problem or spot someone else has a problem? How do you address that? Because like you said, it's so normalized to just abuse alcohol in our industry, and that is exactly what most of us do, even though, but because we're surrounded by people who do the same, it's okay. So like how does one realize they have a problem?
That's a great question, Holly. I think the first thing to realize is that almost all of us have a problem. If the exception of Antonio, like if we went to the doctors and were honest about the amount that we consume, the doctors would be extremely worried. So I think the first point is to realize that we are extreme drinkers. And then, and once we realize that, we can kind of take steps to cut back. But it's very easy to get caught up in this kind of culture that we have within the industry, and this kind of toxic masculinity of like, it's almost like you have to earn some stripes. It's a competition to see who's the most fucked up, who's the most hungover, who's done the craziest thing. So I think it's trying to break that toxicity, and say, when people do want to stop having a drink, not bully them and shame them for it, and encourage it. But it can be really, really hard to, particularly with friends, if you know a friend who's got a drinking problem. And we've lost quite a few people in the industry over the last number of years, quite high profile people in the industry, to a variety of reasons. And it's always massively upsetting that almost every time we go to Tales of the Cocktail now, it's with the heavy cloud of we're remembering someone that we've lost a few weeks before Tales, and it's happened the last 3 years running. So I think like trying to have those hard conversations with friends, and it can be easier if you know a friend who's got a drinking problem, if you can speak to kind of a group of friends and so kind of all tackle it as a group, rather than trying to kind of do it individually, because it can be a very sensitive conversation to have there. But if you get a group of people looking out, and it can be hard, the easy way to do it is just to keep drinking with your friend, but you're just exacerbating the problem. It is hard to face up to a friend who's got a drinking problem, but you are being a friend by tackling that big problem with them. So my recommendation would be that if you know someone that is really struggling, talk to their friends, get a group of you together and kind of all brainstorm it together, how you're going to tackle and help this person, because they will at the end of the day be very grateful for your help. But I also think our role as bartenders is to kind of work towards putting an end to this toxic masculinity of excessive drinking within our industry and shaming people into drinking when maybe they don't want to or they shouldn't. So this is why things like the no and low movement are really exciting, because we can still have all of those moments that bring us great enjoyment within the industry, but just temper our alcohol consumption a little bit. I'm very much pro alcohol. I think it brings a lot of great things to our health, to society as a whole. But having this kind of no and low option as well brings a lot of the benefits of the social aspects, the human connection, and allowing us to temper our consumption.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because I forgot to mention at the beginning, we're not here to hate on alcohol. Like, that's not the point. The point is to discuss options, and companies like Lyre's have given options outside of that to create low and no ABV cocktails. And I honestly, and I say this wholeheartedly, most of you here know that honesty is my forte, to a plus and a minus to me, but like I honestly am really enjoying the Lyre's Italian spritz with soda has made me feel like, many of you know my husband Tom, but like he'll have a beer with dinner, and then I don't feel left out just having water because I have another option now, you know, or now I know when I go out, if, like, say for example, I want to drink an Aperol spritz, I can replace the Aperol but still have the Prosecco and, you know, lower the ABV and things like that. So I think, like, you know, to build on what Tim said, it's not about like demonizing alcohol or shaming anyone. It's just about, you know, we're on this path. It's about sort of going a bit sideways in how we approach it, and adding new strings to that bow.
Holly, I'd love to make a few points here. I've been very strangely quiet. It's probably because it's very early here in Amsterdam and the caffeine's yet to kick in. But it's been really fascinating to listen to these discussions. And there's so many mixologists, so many bartenders on this call, my co-panelists, and I can see them all, incredibly talented people. But I think the solution lies in the origins of the industry. You describe yourselves as the hospitality sector. And to be hospitable is to make people feel comfortable and make them feel welcome, and to encourage a human connection, either with yourselves behind the bar or with others in the place that you happen to be serving drinks. And the whole, a bartender's job, I don't think anyone would describe a bartender's job as, I'm attempting to get my patrons absolutely wasted, and so they have a horrible time and a horrible day tomorrow. I think a more accurate bartender's job is, I'm going to use my skills as a liquid chef or a level 7 drinks wizard or whatever you want to call yourself, to create something beautiful, elegant, sophisticated that most people cannot create at home. And they come to my hospitality venue to have a wonderful time and do something really different that they can't in their lounge room or in their kitchen. And if they meet some people and form a human connection, then that's great. Now, for me, if it's being hospitable, that means not judging people's choices. And if they are not drinking, or if they are drinking, you have something for them. And the non-alcoholic menus have all of your skill and all of your passion and all of your talent as a mixologist poured into them to create equally as beautiful creations as you do with alcohol. So for me, that's not so, the transition that we need to make isn't I don't think the toxic masculinity in stamping that out. If we embrace what it is truly to be a hospitality sector and be hospitable, then that behavior will leave of its own accord. So I just want to make those points before we move the conversation on.
No, that's a really great point. I'd be interested to see what the bartenders like Jesse, Antonio, Bex, like what do you guys think about that? Like, I mean, I know you guys all practice that. I don't think, all of you, Beckaly throws a party. I know that, but like, none of your intentions is never to make people feel awful, so like, I guess, is that something that we're lacking in the industry, or we need to pass down to the new people? Like, where is this coming from,
Well, so like, Holly, those of you that don't know, Holly's, my twin shadow. She's my best friend. So she knows I feel incredibly passionate about this stuff. And I couldn't agree more, of course, with the gag quote, Gaz quote, but something that I've always said is bartending is a privilege, not a right. And I find, along with the surgence of craft cocktails and mixology being coined and things like that, there was a very gregarious sense of entitlement, and it's being behind the stick is quite literally a privilege. It's an honor to be able to welcome people into whatever you deem to be your home, to take care of them. And at the end of the day, that is the goal, and that is the job. And whatever the platform is. So with, just using Pontiac as an example, again, the Pontiac is simply built to be a platform for inclusivity. And, anytime I, talk to potential hires and stuff like that, I mean, I do train them on obviously the skills and what is needed to work behind that bar specifically. But what we work on the most is interpersonal relationships, to provide that, that part of the hospitality, to get people out of, themselves. And again, like, we sell inclusivity. That is what we do. We want people to be able to come in and feel connected. Obviously there's, again, like the Pontiac, the bar program is to, like, quote unquote commit to the lit, but that's also meaning we mean commit to the light inside of you. We mean let yourself be seen, shine, whatever you need. Is that it's part and parcel to what we do. So it's the goal is not to get people as crunk as they possibly can be, but the goal is definitely to welcome them into our arms and into our hearts, and you know, give them space to be themselves.
Awesome, thank you, Beckaly.
Sorry, I'm just going to jump on the back of what Beckaly's saying, because I certainly agree with every point she's making. And I would also say from my background, and Beckaly, I know you come from the States as well. I'd be lying to you if I said that I wasn't at one time that bartender that was there to get you completely wasted and to have that party with you. And I think that that's something that I went through for the early stages of my bartending career, because I was emulating what seemed to be fun and cool and to the people around me. And I've grown past that. And I think, the big word that comes into my mind with this is just honesty. And I think, there's an honesty in service and hospitality, and you have to be honest with yourself and with the way you serve your guests and the offerings that you have for your guests. And what are you actually trying to do? Are you there to serve the guests, or are you there to like have your own party and for the guests to just jump on to like what you want to do? And being sensitive to every single person's need, which takes a lot of bartending experience and is what makes a great bartender. But I guess long story short, the way that this continues to move forward is that us as leaders, we train our teams to be sensitive to people's needs and to be honest with themselves and the guests, and not just put forward this kind of, bullshit, like it's just a party every single night and we're going to get wasted and see what happens. And that is how things will eventually progress, in my opinion.
Awesome, thank you, Josie. So let's talk about the positive stuff. Well, it has all been very positive, but I think that a lot of the time, we all love alcohol and the taste and the craft and hospitality, but I think that we often forget the benefits of not drinking, or, drinking less, or switching to lower ABV. And, something that has really surprised me, because again, like I said, given Dry January a good try, but my concentration has been ridiculous. Like it has vastly improved in the, 18 odd days that I've only had. Over that period, I've only had a few drinks. Like I said, I'm not perfect, I'm trying. But my concentration has vastly improved. There's obvious things like Tim pointed out, like your liver getting a chance to recoup. There's obviously less calories, losing weight. But what are some other things that you guys have experienced when you've, cut down or changed the way that you've approached drink? I'm also happy to hear from the audience as well, if you want to put in the group chat. But has anyone got any pointers? Not pointers, anything they'd like to say that they've noticed when they've cut back a bit? No, all the obvious stuff there.
Your sleep improves.
Sleep definitely improves. So alcohol, the two things that will really disrupt your sleep in terms of brainwave patterns are alcohol and caffeine. So they kind of counteract each other, meaning that whilst a lot of people think that if they have a drink, it helps them fall asleep, you may be asleep, but that quality of that sleep is really, really poor. And there's an increasing amount of research that believes that a major part of a hangover is the sleep disruption. That's one of the reasons why you feel so shit after a really big night out. So that's a great shout on sleep. I think the other point to mention is that we are probably the only industry in the world where it's okay to be drunk at work.
No, I don't agree with this with my colleague.
I don't know, Tim, I used to be a teacher.
drunk in the classroom? Fuck you, kid, just throwing chalkboards.
How do you think
it's obviously being drunk at work inhibits your performance at work. It's going to increase breakages, you're going to have poor decision making, you're going to make more mistakes. So that's going to have an impact on the business. So it's not very professional to be drunk at work. So if you want to be a drinks industry professional, a bar professional, making sure you are in control of your drinking, particularly when you're at work, is definitely the way to go. And it's not like, yeah, there might be those nights where you do have a few big celebrations, New Year's Eve, Chinese New Year, whatever. But when you're doing it 4 or 5 nights a week, it very quickly becomes a big problem.
Yeah, that's true. What was I going to say there? Yeah, I think that, you know, something a lot of you guys know that I've recently like trying to learn to bartend, and something that I find is weird at drinking on the job is it doesn't often catch up with you to the end as well. Like, you know, I'll step back from behind the bar and it all just hits you at once. And that's never a good feeling. And you're like, I just want to go home now, and you're shit-faced.
I was just going to go back to it, like with the whole being a brand ambassador gig. So I attempted to be an ambassador for like, I don't know, 6 months or something like that, maybe even a shorter span of time. And it was, even for me, and I do indulge, I enjoy it. And, you know, I like to have a moderate life, but like, I also very much like to indulge. I was shocked. Like I was 100%, I was like, I cannot do this. I will not do this to my body. I cannot do this to my body. And then on top of that, well, a lot of times people don't understand is like, flying is so incredibly difficult for your body. And when you're an ambassador drinking that much all the time and flying, whether it's internationally or whatever, but like flying is so incredibly hard on you. And it's just completely devastating to your body.
Yeah, I have firsthand experience of that, and you're totally right. And also the kind of the loneliness that comes along with being on the road all the time. You know, my struggles with being an ambassador and drinking are very well documented and very public, but it almost killed me. So next time an ambassador comes into your bar, be nice to them. Don't give them a shot of their product. Yeah, you know, you just see them come into the bar with their corporate credit cards, drinking like they're the life of the party, but it's actually a really, really difficult job.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, Tim, you don't want a shot of your own product. You're sick of it.
Absolutely.
Give them a shot of the direct competitor, at least. So, you know, we're all very collaborative as an industry, and you know, one thing that I found when I joined the industry is everyone's just so welcoming. We're all very much on the same page, and especially in Asia, we're all very tight knit, and I think, you know, we all strive for one goal. So what can we do together, you know, to move forward and keep normalizing moderate drinking or no drinking or taking breaks and things like that? Like, is it something we need to do as an industry? You know, is it something that we need to involve our customers and consumers in as well? Do we need activations? I mean, obviously, Tim, you've taken massive steps with setting up platforms like Healthy Hospo. But what other things can we do? And I think, you know, one conclusion obviously we've come to is we need to support each other's decisions and respect each other more. But it's all easy said and done in this group chat. And then, you know, we go to a bar at the weekend and I guarantee you someone will say to me, oh, why aren't you drinking? Or have a shot. I don't know, like, I don't think there's any answer, but what are some of the steps that you guys think we can take to start normalizing?
I think, sorry to jump in, but bartenders have a very big role to play in influencing what people drink. You know, there's a reason why liquor brands and non-liquor brands court bartenders so much, because they are influential in shaping how people drink. And so I think all of you guys on the call have an opportunity to kind of drive this movement forward. And give people other options. You know, it's not just about alcohol anymore. You can create amazing drinks using non-alc products, and it pushes your creativity. You know, bartenders love being creative, and quite often you can be your most creative when you're restricted, when you put boundaries on things. So putting on that boundary of this drink must contain no alcohol allows you to then be creative in a whole different direction. So I think there's lots of like really fun opportunities in there as well. And then just removing that stigma. You know, for me, I had a real eye-opening moment when I was out with some friends in London. They were over from New York, and you do the bar tour and go to Artesian, and We went to Dandelion and the Savoy and some of the other bars. And we got to Dandelion, which was a while ago before it was Lioness. And I'd had maybe 5 cocktails and I had a big day the next day. So I was like, and they've just got a new no ABV menu. So I ordered a drink from there, and it was a sweet potato pina colada thing, in the way that Dandelion do their cocktails. Yeah, Antonio, that was great. But for me, what it meant was I felt like all my friends were carrying on drinking because they were kind of on a holiday, but I just felt so included in the moment because we all had a delicious cocktail. And then the following day, I wasn't hungover. I managed to have a super productive day. I really enjoyed the night out. And for me, that was a real penny drop of the power that non-alcohol drinks can have, both for drinkers and for non-drinkers.
Yeah, that's really interesting you say that, Tim. I think, like I said, I was talking about being at Beckaly's shift and having one of the drinks with no booze and then going to another bar. And for me, that was really empowering because, like, it's almost like you need to prove to people, like, I can still hang out and be fun when I'm not drunk.
Yeah.
Granted, I can be silly and even more fun when I'm drunk.
Yes.
I can still...
Thank you.
Can someone turn their audio off?
I think it's Celestine.
Celestine, yeah, there we go. No, and I think that's a really, has anyone else ever had a moment like that? You know, like Tim said, that penny drop, the moment clicks where you're like, oh, I can hang out and not get absolutely wrecked. You know, for me, I think this weekend was one of those really big ones where, you know, I got up, I went hiking, I went to the bars, still had like a fun time. Granted, we have to close at 6 o'clock here, so you can't really stay out late, but then went home and still could have a productive day, you know.
I think there's also we need to recognize that there's also kind of like peak drunk. So you kind of, you know, your social skills get a bit better, you feel good, and then you get to a point and it just goes like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, having some no ABV drinks means that you can kind of manage and maybe stay in this area rather than just falling off the edge of the cliff and falling asleep at the bar like Antonio.
No, it's a dangerous seesaw, isn't it? Like you said, you get to the point where, because I've not been drinking and going out, I'm like, I'm still always a confident person, but I feel a bit more bumbly. I'm like, oh, do I need alcohol to function? But like you said, it's dangerous because you get to that point where it's a sweet spot, but then you're so ready to just go down the other side. Yeah. You know, it's just maintaining that little sweet spot there. Look, guys, I think we've had a really fruitful discussion, and I feel like this is naturally rounding up. But what I'd like to do is, I know Beckaly has to leave us at 4, so Bex, feel free to jump off whenever. But if those of you watching, if you have any questions, be a great time to put them in the chat box now. If you've got any burning questions or, you know, advice or anything that you want to ask our panelists. And for our panelists, if there's any other points that you want to touch upon, like, please don't feel confined, you know, to the questions. Add in your other bits and pieces. But I'm just going to give the audience a little bit to tap away or put any questions that they want in there.
I'm just going to say before I go that as per usual, it's so great to see all of your beautiful faces. I have so much gratitude for this time and place and to be with you and to speak to you. I got 3 Lyre samples. I got the London Dry, the Italian Spirit, and Aperitif Rosso. And I am a vermouth loving lady, so I condone this guy. She's my favorite. It's the Aperitif Rosso.
I concur. I concur.
Yeah!
Me too.
Yeah!
Antonio, me and you, yeah? Italian Spirit.
I'm with you, Bex.
Yeah, man. Great taste buds. All right. Well, it was great to see you guys. Thank you again.
Thanks, Bex. Just whilst we're just waiting for everyone to, if the audience have any questions, we'll just go for a few minutes. But I'd just like to know from everyone, Antonio, Jesse, Tim, Mark, what are your favorite no-low cocktails that you've had recently? For me, I think that like I said, I keep using Beckaly's shift as a reference, but she had this drink and it was grapefruit juice. I can't remember exactly what was in it, but for me, things like kombucha and something that's sour, it makes me feel like I'm drinking, because obviously, you know, we tend to steer away from sweet, and I don't mind Coca-Cola and things like that, but something's like that's sweet and tangy, and like, let's have more tepache and kombucha in bars. I think that's my go-to when I'm not drinking. But how about you, Rach? What do you like to drink when you're not drinking?
I actually really enjoy the Lyre's Dark and Stormy.
Oh, nice.
It's
I'll have to
just
try.
like the real thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome.
So
How about
that's
you, Antonio?
super easy, also really relatable to the consumers. So something I recommend for everyone. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Rach. So you're
That's the
sold on the Italian spritz.
things that I have been drinking during the whole time with tonic.
Me too. Mine's almost gone.
Oh wow, you know, it's
Yeah,
like
mine's empty.
that is
I've
something
had
that's
two.
really good.
At 6 a.m., Tim, well done.
Yeah, it's a different kind of different kind of Americano for the morning. Huh?
Guys, we've got a question here from Sarah Connolly in Brisbane, who said, trying to encourage venues in Brisbane to stock alcohol-free, but getting resistance. Any advice on how to approach that? Not selling anything, just trying to create opportunities for non-drinkers. Does anyone want to address that?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, Sarah. I'm a Brisbane boy originally, so I understand the how crazily conflated alcohol consumption is with, you know, being a person of worth in that part of the world. And it feels like the bartenders of Brisbane are a long way behind the rest of the community. And it seems to be some particular groups there, but for the most part, I know that our rep on the ground there has been selling it in like crazy. So you should be able to find it, I guess, Lyres and more broadly non-alcoholic through the better bars of Brisbane and cocktail bars. So the tide is changing, and there is a tsunami of availability about to strike the sands of Brisbane. But just hang in there. One of the most successful campaigns waged by consumers to hold their bars and hospitality sector to account was in the UK. So there's an organisation there called Club Soda. And what they do is they actually score pubs and bars and restaurants on their non-alcoholic options. So if you're a consumer that's electing not to drink that night, that week, that month, or alcohol's out of your life for good, you can open the app up and you can find something near you that has amazing non-alcoholic options, and it can steer you away from venues that don't have good non-alcoholic options. So perhaps, you know, starting an initiative like that for Brisbane and starting to hold the hospitality sector to account to say, hey, you know, it's the stats from Australia are amazing. It's close to 1 in 4 people, 1 in 4 adults don't drink, which is crazy. I don't know any of them personally, but they're out there. And what the other side of the coin is that when people do drink, they tend to stop after 1 or 2, and that's over 60% of people. So there's this incredible missed opportunity to bring people into venues that don't drink. And then people who are in venues, for more than half of them, to sell them that second or third drink that they may or may not want. So so definitely have a look at Club Soda and maybe steal from their playbook with pride and deploy it into Brisbane. But I can assure you that the change is coming, and you should have some better options behind bars pretty soon.
Oh, Stroth, thanks for that. Couldn't help myself. Just a reminder to the audience to ask some questions. We've got some others to address here. And just to the Lyres guys, if each of you, I think, would be useful for anyone listening in who's interested in getting you guys in, add your emails in the chat box and like maybe the region that you cover so people can contact you. So maybe tap those in now. The Sober Vegan Freedom, who sounds like a perfect candidate for this.
Sounds like my kind of friend.
Yeah, for this session, says, what do you think will be the hardest cocktail to replicate?
This is easy. It's a martini.
Yes, agreed. Yeah.
You just couldn't do it. You couldn't make a really, really good non-alc martini. Lots of other drinks, absolutely you can, but the martini is so reliant upon the punch from the gin.
Yeah, look, as someone who's spent, over 3 years with my good friend David Murphy, and I can see him on the call. David's one hell of a sommelier. So, I brought in the big guns to help me with product development. We think, we're validated by having the most awards in the world, but in terms of our approach, but replicating alcohol is something that is insanely difficult to do. It's a journey that's taken us around the world to work with any number of beverage technology companies. Ingredients come from 39 different countries of origin, and we use multiple manufacturing methods to ensure that the products are entirely natural, other than the preservative that we need to use in them. So there's so much R&D that goes into this. The good news is, and as the sector continues to grow, more and more money will pour into it. Technology will improve, and innovations will continue to happen. So for us, I know Lyre's was a massive breakthrough for the industry. We were the first to really nail the dark spirits in the spirit spectrum and create, facsimiles of the alcoholic originals. But to get that super high ABV punchy martini, you're looking at a product, and there's no hiding in a martini. It's gin with a little tickle of vermouth, right? So, and a whole lot of love from behind the bar. But alcohol has its own flavor. It's slightly sweet. It's glycolic, so it's got a gravity to it on the palate that's really, really hard to replicate in a non-alcoholic way. Murph and I, we've looked under every stone and every sort of possible ingredient to try and bring it closer to that experience, and we get better all the time. But to close the gap and have something that's completely indistinguishable from the original is very, very difficult, simply because it lacks that 40% ABV plus in some of the gins as well. So we're getting there. I agree with you wholeheartedly, Tim. The getting a martini right is going to be, well, not a martini right, getting a martini indistinguishable is going to be very, very difficult. But there's one thing I like to sort of bring people's attention to, and it's Diet Coke versus Coke. And you go, if you drink Diet Coke, you go, oh, that's not Coke, but it's close. And a lot of people get used to the flavor of Diet Coke after drinking it for a little while. And then over time, they start to prefer it. And now in 2021, Diet Coke actually outsells the original that's been super popular for over 100 years. So it's the same. And the reason Diet Coke's so far away from Coke is it's removed all that sugar, and sugar's adding viscosity and mouthfeel and sweetness. So if you remove 40% ABV from a base spirit plus, you're going to run into some differences. It's going to feel lighter on the palate, much like Diet Coke feels like Coke. But you still can get all of those beautiful perfumes and the flavor elements into a beverage. And if you layer it behind something that contains a little sugar, or layer it together with other non-alcoholic spirits, you can move them to the point of being indistinguishable. So things like sours, anything mixed with mixers, anything mixed with juices, take most consumers off the street. I'm not talking industry professionals, but most consumers off the street, they struggle to tell the difference. But a martini, absolutely, that's a tricky one, given there's nowhere to hide.
Yeah, that's a good point. Martini is one of my favorites, and unfortunately, Jesse just had to leave us. He's the martini king here. He was probably like, "Oh, I'll show myself out, shall I?" No, he messaged me. He had to leave us, but he said thanks for letting me be part of the conversation. We do have a couple more questions, guys, and two of them I'm going to kind of amalgamate because they're talking about price. So let me just scroll up. So Sean Chong has asked, non-alcoholic spirits are non-existent in Malaysia, at least not yet. How has price for spirit-free cocktails been received in general? And I'm going to add on Vivian's question at the end, because they're two separate things, but they're both regarding price. So Sean's asking how price has been received. And Viv has said that various people ask why some of these non-alcoholic options are so expensive when there is no alcohol. How should she respond? She says, I know a lot of the costs have gone to R&D production, but how do you respond to that?
It's an interesting one. I'm good friends with Ben Branson from Seedlip. And when they launched, there was extreme shock from the industry of like, how can you charge so much? For people's perception is it's just flavored water, right? Because people don't understand the production, the fact that making non-alcoholic spirits is actually more expensive, because in many cases you're adding in additional production, like you're de-alcoholizing, which is an extra separate production. But obviously non-alcoholic spirits don't have the same duty and tax. So it's an interesting one that people associate value with the amount of alcohol it has, not the production costs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Mark, I'm sure you've got a lot more to say on this.
Yeah, look, let me try and answer it from a producer's perspective. And we get this one a lot. And it's, the consumer is very different from the trade. The person walking into the bar is very different from people who run a bar for profit. So all of our studies show us, and we observe the consumer really closely. We're a grown-up company, and we're trying to run and move ourselves towards profitability. So we study something called price elasticity. And that's an economics term. If anyone's familiar with demand and supply, it's the curve of the demand curve. So it's actually an inelastic product where price doesn't really matter to people. So if there's a non-alcoholic, sophisticated, beautiful option that helps them feel included, they're happy to pay the same and often more than the alcohol-containing original. That's the consumer's lens.
That's because they're paying. That's because they're paying for an experience, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that was about to be my point. Is they're not just buying the liquid, they're buying the experience. They're buying, a seat at your bar, the banter from the bartender, the beautiful architecturally designed environment, and that moment. So all of those things are pulled together. It's a confluence of all of these things to come together to go, oh yeah, whatever, I'll pay X for it. Now, the cost of non-alcoholic spirits, yes, there's no duty. Let's put that on the table. But what there is we're also not making gin or bourbon by the swimming pool like multinational beverage companies are. Olympic swimming pools at that. So they make alcohol on such incredible scale, it's breathtaking. If anyone's been to a commercial distillery for Diageo or Pernod Ricard or William Grant or Beam Suntory, it's absolutely amazing the NASA level industrial scale that these manufacturing facilities have. And that's not something that's available to the non-alcoholic sector at this time. So we're delivering and we're selling, and we're craft businesses. No one has a problem paying 30 to 40% more for a crafted spirit that's made in small batch, that's highly specialized, and has some unique ingredients. That's exactly what's going on in our sector. So yes, while there's not duty, there's a number of other things that are creating the lift for pricing towards, parity with alcohol. Over time, and I don't know how many years this will be, but over time, if the industry can achieve the same levels of scale that the alcohol industry currently enjoys for its mainstream products, then I think we will see some downwards pressure on prices, and producers like Lyre's will be able to pass them across to the trade and to the consumer, and still have viable businesses able to create these products and put them in shelves and put them behind bars. But for now, quite simply, this is the price that we need to sell things at, to produce them to the quality that we make them, and to keep our people employed and to keep the business viable. And of course, we're also continually investing in R&D. So we're relentlessly improving our products. So for us, that's a really important thing. And that's what some of that money goes towards as well. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a lens from the producer, and answers that very, very common question that comes up a lot.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. I think it's really good to hear it from the horse's mouth. It's rare that we get to have this kind of close contact with, founders and producers, especially in a new unique category such as no ABV, non-alcoholic. Guys, I think this is a really nice place to end this session. I think it's been very fruitful. It's had some ups and downs and some dark but honest truths that we all needed to hear. But there is light at the end of the tunnel, and the light is low in alcohol. So follow that light. But, I think the one takeaway for me is just, it is hard to go, say cold turkey or whatever, but it's moderation, it's making changes, it's working with products like Lyre's to, like I said earlier, just adapt small things, maybe switch Aperol for Italian spirits, but still have the Prosecco, whatever works for you. I think we all need to take better care of our health. And there's no better time to be reminded of taking care of your health than in a global pandemic.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much. Just a reminder that Lyres people have got put their emails in the chat box. If there isn't a rep for your region, I'm sure that you can reach out to either Rachel, Grace, or Mark, and they'll point you in the right direction. Tim's got something. Go, Tim.
I just wanted to say that if anyone on the call is struggling with the alcohol consumption, or if they know someone that is right now, I put my email in the chat box, so please reach out to us at Healthy Hospo, and we're here to help if there's anything you need.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tim. I think, look after each other. It's really weird days out there. And 2021 doesn't look like it's going to be much better. So let's take care of each other.
It is. It's going to be much better. We've got a vaccine now. Trump has 2 days left in the White House.
Yes.
One day. This is his last day. He's out tomorrow. So 2021 is going to be better than 2020.
Yeah,
sure.
Who knows what happened in America in these 2 days though. Anyway, that's another rabbit hole. We won't go down that.
No.
Thank you so much, everyone. It's been a great turnout. It's really nice to see everyone. As usual on these Zoom sessions, it breaks my heart that it's been a long time since I've seen a lot of you. But yeah, thank you for joining. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you for everyone's insight. And stay well, stay healthy, and stay sober or tipsy, just not shit-faced.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, Holly, for everything.
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye. Thanks, Holly.